The third one was the real winner, right? A 10.31% increase in conversions, almost 11% in revenue per visitor. That's huge, right? So it was an actual 131 grand per month in monthly monetary contribution. We always track monthly monetary contribution. There are brands crushing at 6%, 9% conversion rate. Like, how would you even process this? And when they said that they were moving 9% conversion rate, I was like, no kidding. We have a rule of thumbs. That's why when you said, okay, I was at $120 average order value, and you pointed out that you're below 2% conversion rate, I'm saying confidently that there were some leaks in the funnel that could be definitely improved, and it could bump you up above that 2% mark with hard work, right? But in diligent work.
Specifically, I think during Black Friday, right, you have like split second to convert that customer, right? Because they're bombarded with hundreds of offers, right? Their emails, your email inbox is flooded. Every brand is running their offers, right? So I think there the CRO is so important because you have like a split second and don't waste it, right? You need to convert. Hello everyone, welcome back to our podcast. In today's episode we will cover the CRO blueprint, how to lower CAC and increase ROAS. And we're joined by the very expert on this topic, Igor Silva from Vasta. Thank you so much, Igor, for taking the time during this busy Q4 season and joining our podcast today.
For sure, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Where are you dialing in from? Are you based in Brazil or in California? Where are you currently?
As of this very moment, I'm in Brazil. Yeah, so headed back to the US next week for a couple events before I settle back in Brazil for the rest of the year again. So hanging out in a Q4 all the way through Q4 in Brazil. It's going to be fun because summertime is about to start.
I can imagine. Yeah, I think one of the things I really enjoy about working in this industry is that you really get to know people from all kinds of different places, right? I think commerce is truly global. And maybe for the audience, maybe a quick interesting background story on how we actually met. I think the first time we met was on Affiliate Will. It was in March, right, this year. Then we met again in New York during Affiliate Summit in August. And there was a coincidence, right? We didn't plan it. We met there. And then we met each other again in Boston. And then we were like, okay, now we have to record a podcast together. But curious to hear from your side, like which of those events did you like best?
I truly liked e-tail best because it talked a lot more about e-commerce, right? Even though there was a little bit of it was a little harder to build connections, right? So I really enjoyed e-tail a little more for the sake of the actual knowledge that was shared in there. And then on the flip side, Affiliate Summit was awesome. It was my first time in New York doing that. Of course, I've been to New York a few times before, but Affiliate Summit was awesome and got to meet a bunch of people and got to see you again in there. I was like, all right, I can't believe it. So, always glad to connect and build relationships.
Yeah, I agree. I think e-tail was great. A bit more corporate compared to the other ones. But yeah, the content was indeed very useful. A lot of, I think all the events are about AI. But the sessions were great. Yeah. Let's maybe start with a quick introduction for the people who don't know you, Igor. Could you just share with the audience, like briefly, who are you and what is Vasta about?
Okay. Well, my name is Igor. I'm way more than just an entrepreneur. We can go on that tangent for quite some time now and talk about identity, right? Because I'm a husband, I'm a family man, and all that fun stuff that come along with it. But also, what I'm currently doing, right, and I've been doing for more than a decade, is to be an entrepreneur in the e-com space. Of course, I started back with digital marketing by joining way back then, about 15 years ago, joining a medical marketing group, and then stayed with them for 6 years before I even jumped into doing my own thing at Vasta, right? So for Vasta, we're solely focused on e-commerce, right? The platform of our choice is Shopify, even though we come with a vast experience of, WordPress as a platform, right? So we do master both of them, but what we've focused solely is Shopify over the last 8 years. So in a nutshell, Vasta is a CRO and UX optimization partner for D2C brands on Shopify, right? We help brands reduce CAC and increase ROAS without spending more on traffic. Basically, right? We get you fix the leaks in the funnel and optimize for revenue per session. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's what a lot of merchants want to do and have to do. Just maybe real quick for some of the people maybe in the audience who don't know yet what CRO is, could you maybe just give us like a 1 sentence or 2 sentence quick explanation on what, right, it stands for conversion rate optimization, but for the people who don't know, what is it exactly, and then we will go into depth.
Easy, too easy. So in plain English, it means that, it improves your website, right? So more visitors actually convert, whether that's to purchase, to subscribe, or take any desired action, right? So it's about making your existing traffic work harder before you spend any dollar, any other dollar on ads.
Yeah.
In simple terms, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that's a good definition. And obviously there's a lot more to it, but that's kind of the, in layman terms, what CRO is. And right, so you mentioned before starting Vasta, you worked for like 6 years at a digital marketing agency. Is that kind of how you got into the whole e-commerce and digital marketing space?
Yep.
Yeah,
that was it. I used to work with doctors before I came to the e-com space. And that was a great learning process for me as a whole, because doctors are very diligent, very detail oriented, and to bring that understanding of what type of deliverables they like to see and they like to experience, right, as part of how they do things, how they operate as professionals. It shaped me to be focused on, pixel perfection in a sense, when we go to the screens and we get to have super well dialed in funnels that convert at a higher pace.
Yeah, I can imagine, right? In the healthcare sector, you have to be very careful, right? I think in the consumer space, it's a little bit less. So I can imagine that background can help, right? If you have, higher due diligence, better eye for detail, and then bring that into the e-com space. But what was kind of the moment where you were like, okay, right, I have all this experience which I did at this agency, and then what was the moment where you were like, okay, I want to start my own company and I want to start my own agency? What was kind of that moment, and how did you actually get started? I think that was also interested for the audience to know.
Yeah, for sure. So being on that space gave me, a gift, right? Being numbers first, ROI obsessed, right? Detail oriented mindset, as I mentioned, right? Then I migrated to e-com, and I saw brands lighting cash on fire, right? With beautiful sites that didn't convert at all, right? So in a sense, most agencies, they obsess over traffic, and we obsess over what happens after the click happens, right? So Vasta was basically built because I saw this massive gap, right? Brands scaling ads with what we call leaky funnels, right? And because we're not media buyers, right? We're conversion engineers in a sense, right? So we tend to go very deep into behavior psychology, UX patterns, and hypothesis-driven testing to drive real revenue growth.
Yeah.
So that was the inspiration behind data.
Yeah, I like seeing that gap, right? I think that's what happens a lot. I think with business people, like entrepreneurs who start, you see an opportunity, right, and you take it. And I think you explained it quite well. I think that's really the case in e-commerce, right? You have the acquisition part, but then there's so much to do once your customers or your prospective customers land on your website, right? And that's where basically CRO kicks in. I think that's great. Let me just maybe briefly share my screen, because we will do today's podcast a little bit different than usual. It has a little bit of a webinar type of structure. Let me quickly see if I can share my screen in a way that it is in the recording. Oh, yeah, there we go. And the reason we do this is because in this podcast, we go quite in depth. So some of the elements are a bit technical, right? And we want you guys to get as much value as possible out of this podcast. So you, after this session, you go home and you say, okay, I have all these points which you can actually implement directly for your business. And because some of them are quite technical, we prepared a quick slide deck, which you can access below. And then you can also follow on the some of the frameworks that we discussed, right? But real quick, what we will cover in today's podcast. So we will start off, right, why CRO is so important and why brands should invest in CRO. Then some of the requirements, right? So when can you actually implement it? Then we will go into depth in the CRO Playbook, where Igor will explain step by step how you can implement a process to optimize your brand for CRO. Then Black Friday, Cyber Monday, right? We just entered Q4, 1 week in, and most of you guys will be driving a lot of traffic to your website. At least I hope you will. And then the lever of CRO is even bigger, right? So we have a quick checklist for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Then what kind of KPIs to track and attribution. We will talk about advertorials as one of the key strategies to improve your ROAS and your performance with paid ads or any other acquisition channel, really. And then we have some time for a few case studies. So that's kind of what we will cover in today's podcast. So again, I think it's quite interesting. It's a bit of a webinar structure, but let's dive right in. So I think, right, CRO is really one of the big marketing elements, I think, in e-commerce, right? You have paid acquisition, you have SEO, you have all kinds of things, but I think CRO is a really big part of it. Why, Igor, would you say is CRO so important for brands, and why should they invest into CRO?
I always run this analogy, okay? Because getting traffic without fixing the funnel is like pouring water into a leaky bucket. So I'm always going to talk about the leaky bucket, right? CRO, in a sense, is there to improve profit margins, extend your LTV, and of course, make sure that your entire media spend is more efficient, right? So in a nutshell, you wouldn't buy a Ferrari and not tune the engine, right? So it's the same thing with scaling without CRO.
Yeah, I think, right, because brands, they spend so much on acquisition. And I think it's naturally, it makes sense, right, that you first look at acquisition, right, because you need to generate traffic. But then what you do with that traffic is so important, right? And what you're saying, the leaky bucket, you're driving all that expensive traffic, right? You're paying for it. And then obviously you want to make sure that you basically squeeze as much as possible. Squeeze sounds a bit negative, but at the end of the day, you want to get as much as possible out of your traffic, right? Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah.
You gotta squeeze that revenue, bro. No matter what, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're in business to make money at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think especially for, right, so if you're a huge brand, right, so enterprise, corporate, if you are at like, let's say 9 figures plus, then maybe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an expert on CRO, you are, but I think like there it might be slightly, well, most obviously like different, but I think especially if you are, 8 figures or even 7 figures, right, it can make a huge difference, right? Because if you don't fix your CRO, you cannot outspend your competition, right? Because your CPM is so expensive, and you need to make sure to get the most out of it, to stay competitive and to actually scale your ad spend, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would go one step further right? Because at the end of the day, it's not about those guys who are moving 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure that should be benefiting from CRO. In a nutshell, I would highly encourage entrepreneurs to look into the CRO process as a starting point. Even for startup brands, they should think about CRO, even though they don't have the ability of running a full-on campaign, right? But at least having a portion of the CRO process, which is basically, auditing and creating hypotheses and then running tests and then reading the reports and going through that cycle over and over again. If you get the opportunity to literally just run the audit to understand exactly where the main leaks in your funnel are, then you're already starting up at a very good pace, right? So yeah, that's basically how it goes. So I would say, have a CRO mindset is the key until you get to the point of really running CRO to its completion, to be able to run tests and collect statistical significance and reiterate, but just use it as a starting point.
Yeah, I think indirectly, right? Whenever you are making changes to your website, to your store, you are, well, it's not like in the profession how you do it, but indirectly you're making changes, right, which impacts your conversion rate in some way or another. But then I think it's really that mindset of like having a real structure to it and then implement it, which we will talk about a lot during this whole session. But yeah, I think that's super, super important. Maybe for, right, I mean, we have a diverse audience, some smaller merchants, some bigger, some are enterprises, right? But in terms of requirements, right, because I think there is certainly a specific, like, kind of a threshold where you need to have like a decent amount of traffic in order for CRO tests to make sense, right? So you can actually drive conclusions from the data. Can you share a little bit about the requirements for CRO? What's kind of the minimum number of sessions a business or e-commerce needs each month? So yeah, the audience knows a little bit when they could qualify for CRO.
Right. Okay. So I can talk about basically a wide range of entrepreneurs and founders, right, who we've worked with. And of course that our best fit clients, they're once again on D2C brands on Shopify. They're moving about 3 mil a year in revenue, right? So the ideal, when we get to run a task, we're talking about, ideally having a $70 plus average order value and having at least 50K visits per month, right? So I say this because through the CRO process, as I mentioned, you have testing as a pillar, right? And then for testing to be statistically valid, you ideally want at least 50,000 visits per month. It's a rule of thumb, right?
Yeah.
So, but for heuristics and user experience improvements, for example, we can create lift even with smaller stores. That's why I said, there is a wide range that you can play with, whether you're just implementing best practices to start with, right? Not only looking at what your friend also D2C founder is doing and just copying it, but going one step deeper, like looking to what your main competitors are doing, right? Looking to the best practices in the CRO game and implementing it, not just coming out with biased opinions.
Yeah, that makes sense. So 50,000 sessions, and then you said like ideally at least a $70 AOV, right? So, right, that yeah, with like 1,000 conversions, there will be around 70 grand a month in revenue, right? Which could be maybe the minimum, right, where it does make sense. I think that's also the range where, in general, like businesses where it makes sense for a business to start looking to partner with an agency. I remember when I was running my D2C brand, which was a kitchen knife brand called Nakano Knives, we had a revenue per session of around $1. I mean, I think you need some context to that, but like in CRO, is that good or bad? I never thought about the CRO aspect. I just knew approximately that I would make around $1 per session. Are there like ranges in that? Does it differ a lot from
It
client to
depends.
client? Yeah.
It depends on the vertical, right? It depends on the product.
Yeah.
It all depends, because here's the point. Data is specific to your brand, to your business, right? Of course, you can get thresholds, you can get benchmarks that people talk about. For example, I can talk about a conversion rate benchmark across the industry between 2% and 3%, but there are brands crushing at 6%, 9% conversion rate. Like, how would you even process this, right? So their revenue per visit is way higher than $1, right?
So you work with clients who have an 8 to 9% conversion rate, or they have it after they start working with you, I assume.
Bro, I was last week I got on a call with he's not my client, but we're in this dating phase, right?
Yeah.
And he brought up his 30-day act rate, because I always talk about a 30-day act rate during our calls. So I get to understand what they're moving, right? And how I can actually help. And when they said that they were moving 9% conversion rate, I was like, no kidding.
You're like, you don't need me anymore. You are already at 9%.
But here's the thing, right? As you hear that, it's just like, well, 9%, you don't need me anymore. But then as you dig deeper and you get to understand that the 9% is basically all organic traffic that comes already pre-sold on the product, then it makes a lot more sense. Because they're talking about one channel as their main source of revenue generation.
Yeah.
When we add paid media to the game through different sources, then the conversation is a lot different.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, super interesting. What kind of vertical was, are you allowed to share that? Like what kind of vertical was this brand? Like what kind of product category? Because 9% in e-commerce, that's huge.
It is.
Like, are you able to?
They're in the dentistry industry, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So not like physical product D2C.
Physical.
Oh, physical
products
product.
For dentist backed type of products.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, I think in general, like traffic is never the same, right? So there are very different types of traffic. I mean, even we have to deal with that a lot when we drive traffic to our website, right? And we saw it in our SEO, for example, quite significantly when we dissected the type of articles we write, and the conversion rate, the demo take rate was, right, is extremely high on a certain portion if you have like bottom of the funnel pages versus, more top of the funnel, or what happens a lot in SEO is that you write something which isn't even really converting, right? But that's SEO, today's CRO. So, but yeah, I think that's super interesting. For my brand, so it was a kitchen knife business. We were at like 1.5% throughout the year. And we knew, I think that was on the lower end because I was reading a lot about e-commerce, and I knew that, kind of 2% is a good mark. But just during Black Friday, we had a very seasonal business. So during Black Friday and Q4, we made a lot of our revenue. More than 60 to 65% of the annual turnover came in Q4. And then in Q4, we hit like 2.5%. And then on Black Friday itself and Cyber Monday, we went up to like 3.54%. I think it was 4% on Cyber Monday the last year I was running that brand. So that's also like the conversion rate differs, right? If you have a seasonal brand, obviously you have like peak selling moments and stuff like that.
For sure. I mean, I would say that during the Q4, that you saw those spikes in conversion rate, you bumped up the discounts quite highly.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that would justify a lot more of the take rate on your products, right?
100%.
The key is to understand, of course, you did have a seasonal brand, but then as you look into the trajectory of a whole cycle, a whole yearly cycle, how can you, in a sense, create equilibrium between the seasons, right? Between each quarter on your conversion rate. So the key foundation here is to look into your AOV and say, okay, how is it? Because if you're hitting, how much was your AOV, just for the sake of understanding here real quick?
It was around $120 to $130.
Okay.
When we started,
So
it was like $20, $30, and then at the end it was 120, 130.
Right. So by being at 1.5-ish with $120 AOV, I would expect your brand to be above 2%, right? Easily, right? So
yeah, we didn't work with you.
I'm confident that if you shared the link to your store, right, on this call or aside from this call, I can literally just comb through a bunch of different improvements that are data backed, that we've been able to collect data and give you more of that input. That would definitely increase your not only your AOV but also your conversion rate, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like a 2%. I mean, if we talk about physical product e-commerce, right? Because I think there our ICP aligns quite a bit. Like you said, Shopify, like physical product is very much your ICP. I think for us it's quite like very much the same. For physical product, like I always thought like 2%. I know it's very difficult to generalize, right? Because every product is different. But like, can you take that as some rule of thumb that 2% is like okay, and if you're above that, then it's good, and if you're below that, you should really look into optimizing for CRO? Or would you say that's too easy to say, you cannot generalize it like this?
You cannot generalize it, right?
Okay.
Because I mean that would be unwise, right? However, the key here is to understand that we also we have rule of thumbs. Okay, that's why when you said, okay, I was at $120 average order value, and you pointed out that you're below 2% conversion rate, I'm saying confidently that there were some leaks in the funnel that could be definitely improved, and it could bump you up above that 2% mark with hard work, right? But in diligent work. But I'm confident just by looking at your AOV.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people are not going to take, many touch points with your brand to make a $120 decision. Right? And as we were talking about 11 to 17 touch points with the brand for me to make a decision, the higher I go towards, making a business, a buying decision, is because my AOV is a lot higher.
Yeah,
in your case, that wasn't.
So can you generally say that
problem.
The higher the AOV, the lower the conversion rate? Usually that's the case, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
Unless you have a killer product that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, and then we can talk about it. But then I would be very intrigued to see it.
No, I think that just naturally makes sense, right? Because, right, obviously the more expensive, the more customer spending, right? The more you would do research, right? I think in the B2B space where we are in, it also requires a lot of like touch points and like a lot of trust. It's the same for you, right? Because you are spending, quite a bit more than if you buy, like, I don't know, a $30 supplement, right? Or whatever you sometimes buy in the consumer space. So I think that makes sense. Let's maybe dive a bit more into detail into like CRO action items, which some of the listeners could implement for their brand. Like, could you share some of the most important tests you run for clients, and where you would say each founder or CMO, whoever is listening in, should implement? I know there are lots, so we can't cover all of them, but like the most important ones, maybe you can just briefly share and explain.
For sure. So the first thing is about clarity, right? I'm always going to talk about clarity no matter what, because clarity creates traction rather than friction, right? So quite often, and this applies to everybody, quite often you go to a homepage and you see, a hero banner that doesn't say much, doesn't state your unique value propositions. It's very unclear, it's too generic, right? Doesn't state your unique value propositions, neither a clear offer, right? And quite often you see all those lighting banners left and right, right? So the most impactful thing that I would test it out, right? And we've seen, right? Of course, that the closer you get to the money, the most impact you have. But as you go all the way up to the homepage, as you test out value prop clarity in the hero section, which is basically the first thing that people see once they go to your homepage, whether it is through mostly organic traffic, right? So as you have more clarity, more people tend to go to the next step in the journey and buy from you. So that would be one thing that I would highly encourage you to look at. How are you communicating your offer on the homepage, right? On the hero banner. And then we go into, framing the price, right? Offer presentation and price justification, right? So we gotta stack bonuses, we gotta frame discounts. So this is as close to the money as it gets.
So
right?
now we are on the product page, right? Because the first point,
Yes.
I think, is the home page, right? And now the second
Homepage.
point is the product page.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Because here's what I'm presenting here, right? Like with the top three, we're going to homepage is one, then we're going to product page as a secondary test, which is as close we get to the money talk, right? Which is on the product page. So make sure that you present the offer clearly. It's not blending everything. Like your offer is not blending along with the user experience, right? And get lost into the mix, right? Make sure that you have your bonuses all stacked up. You frame the discounts accordingly, right? And then we go into the third one, which is as close to the money as it gets, right? In the cart page, checkout page for those who can edit it, right? So it would be about streamlining it, streamline the purchase flow. As soon as you click the button, add to cart, what happens then? Do you already have a slide out cart, right, in there? Or you move people to a cart page. What is your option, right? And then once you get into one of those pages, how much friction do you create versus how much traction do you generate, right? Like how many distractions are in there? Or do I only see what really matters, which is product pricing and proceed to checkout? So it's all about removing friction and building trust.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like the structure because 1, 2, 3 here on the deck really shows, okay, homepage, product page, and then checkout, right? Out of curiosity, I'm not 100% sure if this is more, if you know this, because this may be more the media buyers, but do you know if in the ads, right, in the acquisition, let's say paid ads, right, do people primarily drive the traffic to the product page directly? Because I think if the ad shows a product, right, you want to narrow that journey, or do people still drive a lot of the traffic through paid to the homepage? This is a little bit, paid ads and deviating a little bit from CRO, but just out of curiosity.
You'll be surprised of how many people actually send traffic to a homepage, for example, rather than a product page or even a collection page, right? So the idea is that I can, and we're going to be talking about this later on, but the idea is that I take people from problem-aware subconscious level to solution-aware subconscious level, right? When I push traffic to the homepage, and I expect that people have that understanding and go through that journey of understanding that we got a solution for them, we tend to hit our heads on the wall because the the job of the homepage is not to educate anybody, it's to direct them elsewhere, right? So it's not going to be, showing you price tags or whatever the product's all about. It's about the brand. The homepage should talk about the brand and how to go find what you actually need, right? And you would be surprised of how many media buyers still send people to the homepage. Ideally, I always go for a product page visit, or even better, an advertorial landing page visit, right? Because that's where we can talk about the journey from preconception all the way to saying, here's a product for you. So the sale becomes a lot easier and simpler.
Okay, yeah. So I think so. Like I was talking back then also with a few agencies like for paid, because we were looking into that, and they also said like they recommended, right, specifically if you're already showing a specific product in the ad, to then, right, reduce friction, right? You just want to make the touch points or as easy as possible and short as possible for the customer to convert, right? So that makes sense. And advertorials, we'll get to that in a bit. One last thing regarding checkout, because maybe we can just quickly discuss that here, because there are a lot of strategies, right? And I think like increasing AOV falls within CRO, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And for example, back then when I was running my brand, I think the name was Click Funnel, not Click Funnel. I forgot the name, but we used an app where
One click upsell.
Yeah, I think it's that one with like some one click upsell. I think it was.
I'll see you back, Ezra.
And it was quite good because we could do pre-purchase upsell, and I think what I really liked was the post-purchase upsell, because my thought was always, okay, if I increase the AOV too much, then it might hurt conversion, because right, people are shopping, they buy one item for, I don't know, $70. Like for us, it was like maybe our lower kitchen knives cost $70. Then we upsell them a smaller paring knife, which costs another $30, and then a cutting board, and all of a sudden they're like at $130, and when they check out, they're like, holy shit, I didn't want to spend this much, and they might bounce. But with the post-purchase, it was really funny. The customer already converted, so you got your money, and then they have the option to still purchase something, and then they don't need to enter their credit card details anymore. So just click yes, and then it would be added to the order. Do you work on these kind of things, or is this more what the founder or the CMO of your client does? Just curious.
That's the beauty of one-click technology.
Yeah.
Where you just described, right? And if we don't do this, we're leaving a lot of money on the table. I can share even case studies of implementing an upsell strategy that has literally ramped up revenue and AOV exponentially for some of our brands, right? So yes, the simple answer is yes, we do work, we do upsells, right? And leveraging the one-click technology is the most incredible thing, because here's the kicker. A lot of people, a lot of founders tend to focus on not only break even on the front end, but to make a lot of money on the front end, which tends to decrease their AOV and click-through and conversion rate. The key here is that you at least break even on the front end, and have upsells and downsells in place, post-purchase upsells and downsell in place to sustain your growth and not only break even, but make more money. But that's all happening after the first payment is made, right?
Yeah, this is quite an interesting topic. I had a webinar 2-3 weeks ago where I also had this discussion with another agency founder of like how many of his clients actually break even on acquisition. Because I think, in my opinion, right, you are able to outspend your competitors if you have a good back end, right? You increase or you maximize basically your CLTV, and that you know your numbers well, especially with subscription businesses like supplements and stuff, so that you can be break even, and some even loss-making in acquisition because they know they make the money on the back end.
Exactly.
How is that with your clients? Do you see that a lot of your clients know this and they are intentionally like breaking even on acquisition because they know then they can outspend their customers and essentially grow faster? Or do you see the opposite? Because, for example, for us, it was really difficult because as a bootstrap founder, right, and you had to live off that business, it's quite tough, right? Because especially if you're small, right, you also need to live off that cash flow, so it can be scary to just break even. But maybe share a little bit about your clients, like how do you see that?
It depends on the vertical, right? Because some already have a subscription model in place.
Yeah.
Right. But in your case, for example, that you got a knife business. How can you create a subscription on a knife business?
Not.
Right. You need to be very creative on that side of things and come up with different angles to position another product as a subscription. It's not as simple as, for example, a supplement. Right? A supplement that literally runs out every 30 days and you need to continue. I mean, as long as the product itself does a good job for you and you feel good about it, then you're going to continue reordering it, right? Because the money is on the retention. So it depends, right? The idea is that once you're able to have a very strong subscription model, right? It allows you to have different offer stacking, right? Create different bonuses, right? And not worry much about, of course, I would always worry about having a post-purchase upsell sequence dialed in, right? But for subscriptions, subscription-based businesses, I feel like it's a lot easier to get that dialed in than, in different verticals like a knife, right? Or a car seat cover, right? Hardly ever you're going to be able to do so. So you need to bank on being aggressive on the front end so people can buy from you and not, extend the amount of touch points that they're going to have with the brands, and you're going to have to invest a lot more money into paid media to continue to show them what you got going on in order for them to purchase, but also having something super well dialed as far as your upsell and downsell sequence, so you can continue to leverage that technology to generate more revenue. And then, of course, later on, you come up with, email marketing to boost revenue as you gradually grow. Yeah,
I completely agree. I mean, look, I was always like very upset about not having a recurring business model. I mean, now with Influencer Hero, we have a very recurring, right? It's our subscriptions. But back then it was quite like anxious. But I think on the other side, right, if you have a supplement business, for example, you have lower AOV, right? Like we had a high AOV. Well, it depends what you define high, but we could have even increased it further by building out the catalog. But I think that's also a difference, right? Like maybe I think like subscription business usually tend to have lower AOV because you have to spend every month, right? But yeah, let's move on because otherwise we will run, I think, out of time a little bit. And I think, this whole podcast is actually more about already like e-commerce in general, but I think that makes it super valuable for the listeners as well. So let me just quickly check. So quickly, no, before we go here, could you just briefly share maybe, and I don't have a slide on this, so if you start to work with a client, right? Let's say, right, you're a Shopify business owner and you want to invest in CRO. Like, could you just briefly walk us through what the usual steps are which you take? So also the audience might know, okay, this is how you do it, and maybe they can do it themselves, or they could even contact you. Like, just walk us through kind of a brief journey of a client who would work with you.
Right on. Well, so basically, we start with deep research. That's the early stage, right? That's what I actually suggested that everybody, no matter what size they're in, they run this, right? They get to understand who their competitors are, what they're doing, that you're not doing, so you get everything mapped out, right? I usually use Figma to put everything into a board, right? But this is just a preference because we operate on Figma internally. We can use Canva or whatever, right? But then we start with deep research. So we do analytics. If you do already have heat maps, we check it out. Session recordings, we also check it out. And then it's all about running what's called a heuristic analysis, which is the audit, right? In a sense, the heuristic analysis is going to help you go to the next stage, which is to prioritize the issues by impact, right? So I get to understand what are the high impact, low effort items that we get to focus on first, because the main goal is to, as soon as we onboard a client, we want to implement the quick wins immediately, right? So it's all about finding the low-hanging fruits. So we find the low-hanging fruits, we run A/B tests for hypotheses that really require validation, right? Because up until the point that you can prove with data that hypothesis is valid, right? You need traffic, you need to push through it, right? But it's all a biased opinion until it proves, positive, right? So let me share something here with you, and then we can go from there. I can show you a little bit of the process. I'm not gonna give much details, right? I'm just gonna show you guys a little overview of what that. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, this is perfect.
Okay, yeah, so basically, for example, this is what we call a heuristic analysis, right? So in a nutshell, you do have your home page on the far left, and then your cart page on the far right. So if you do, of course, have landing pages, sales pages, post-purchase upsells, downsells, everything gets mapped out in here. So what we do is that we take a screenshot, right, of the whole page, and then we start to literally dissect, right? So you can see, I'm not gonna give much details of that, of the client, because there's some client-sensitive data here, but we start with page speed, right? We get to understand what are the main basically page speed is the first thing, right? It's the quickest win of all. If you're loading above a 3-second mark on mobile, especially, which is where you're getting the most traffic from, then you're leaving a lot of money on the table, right? Google says that, and please don't quote me for that because I might be wrong, but it's about 20% actual revenue per second that you have a poor experience on the site. So per second that you get to improve, you tend to increase about 20% in revenue. So that's huge, right? Of course, that it differs from business to business, but that's basically the quickest wins of all. Then we map out, we start to point out all the improvement points, everything, right? And then the next thing will be about going to bringing everything into a spreadsheet where we get to literally, prioritize everything. So we say, okay, each of those friction points, it's one row, and we literally just score them with the intention of finding out what are the quickest wins after we map everything together, right? So that would be number one, right? The number one thing that I would highly encourage everybody to do, right? Audit it and then prioritize, because not everything's a priority. Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense, like having it in such a structured way, and then really taking the time. And I think that's also where where a lot of merchants tend to prefer to work with an agency in a CRO setting, right? Because as a founder or as a CMO, you have so many different things you're running, right? And then having this complete structure in-house isn't easy. So that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned already a few tools, right? Heat maps, stuff like that. And I think this is also, right, if brands think, okay, right, maybe they aren't yet at the stage where they think, okay, they would hire an agency, or they would think, okay, I want to do some of it first myself and then hire an agency, which in my opinion also is a great way, because I think when you hire an agency, it's really important to also still be involved in a certain way, right? So you understand what the agency is doing. What are some of the tools, like we don't have to go through all of them, but some important ones, and just briefly, what do they do, so founders would know which ones they could use.
Perfect. So what we have on the screen is basically, they're all A/B test platforms, right? We're talking about using those tools on brands that are actually going through the whole CRO cycle, right? Not only auditing, prioritizing, creating hypothesis, but then when we run into having tests dialed in, running tests day in and day out, then those tools are great, right? We work with all three of them. They all fit different, different mindsets, I would say, of entrepreneurs, and different tech stacks as well, right? Because some brands cannot utilize intelligence, for example. They need to go to Convert, which is not fully synced in the back end of Shopify as an actual app, right? Shoplift is a little more, budget friendly compared to intelligence, but still got the job done, right? So those are for testing purposes, okay? And then we can go deeper into...
So these tools are basically alternatives, so they don't do completely different things. They actually do a similar thing, but then certain companies would be better with Shoplift, and certain would
basically.
Okay, makes sense, yeah.
Basically. But then there are other tools that allow you to go through the analysis process a lot more in depth, right? That I would highly recommend, right? So for example, and this one is free. If you're not using it, you're missing out. Microsoft Clarity, right? Microsoft has, created this beautiful thing that allows you to do heat maps, screen recording, and it's all free. And they say free forever. So, it's beautiful. Some would prefer Hotjar.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you can save $20 or whatever Hotjar is already charging on a monthly basis, by all means do so. Microsoft Clarity has been used across pretty much every single client of ours. I already mentioned the A/B test platforms that are here, right? So for example, the Shopify natives are Shoplift and Intelligence. Then Convert is not native on Shopify. For UX validation, we tend to also use something called Browser Stack, right? Because Browser Stack allows you to see your page on different browsers, on different devices. So it allows you to spot an issue inside of Google Analytics, for example, and then say, okay, I see that there is a lever here that I got to pull, but it's happening to this mobile device using this specific browser. So let me go check it out, right? So in a sense, everything must be spotted from inside of analytics tool, whichever tool do you use, right? I really like GA4, right? Because it collects everything, but some other people would tend to use many others, right? So I would say, have your source of truth data-wise, your analytics tool, right? Whatever you use. And then after you comb through the opportunities there inside of their reports, then you're going to go use a browser stack. Then you're going to go use a Microsoft Clarity and so on, right? And then I can go even deeper, right? Project management. I mean, doing project management.
This is good because otherwise we run out of time. So I think these we want to touch the most important and because I think obviously, right, for project management, we have a lot of tools, but you would say these on the screen right here are a few quick ones they could use, and then the other ones we will make a list which we'll put in the description below. So we have that list up. So let's move on to, I think timing wise, this is probably one of the more valuable, very valuable sections. Let me start it over. So I think timing wise, right, having entered into Q4, right? Where a lot of brands, as I mentioned, will be driving a lot of traffic to their websites. The difference you can make in CRO will or might be the biggest during Q4 because, right? I think a lot of e-commerce brands and people in the audience, not all of them, but a lot of them, they drive a lot of revenue during Q4. What are some of the CRO action items founders can still implement, right? Because we are now, I think, right, 2 months. I think 28th of November is Black Friday, right? So you have a little bit less than 2 months. So you cannot run like tests for like 6 months anymore. Like, what would you say are like some of the things merchants could still do in order to benefit during Black Friday, Cyber Monday this season?
For sure. So as I mentioned before, through the heuristic analysis part of the process, the first thing that we always look into as the quickest win is speed optimization, right? You must have your pages loaded below a 3-second mark, or at least close to it. And the vast majority of clients that we've seen over time, they're running around, 5 to 7 seconds. I've seen people running at 30 seconds, 50 seconds, right? Can you imagine
that's terrible.
the impact on that?
Yeah.
It is terrible.
Yeah.
So, and I want to make a quick point here, because I've had these conversations left and right. And I was actually on a call earlier today with a possible client, and a lot of people are going to Fiverr or Upwork and getting somebody to do speed optimization for them for like, this did for $70. I'm like, what the heck? $70. And on the call, I literally just pull up his source code, and I said, okay, so do you see this code right here? This is the crap that guy you paid $70 for, he added to your store. So it's just faking your scores on Google page speeding sites rather than actually giving a good experience to your visitors. So I would highly encourage to really hammer speed, right? Because it has a direct impact on your bottom line, not only coming from your paid media, but also having Google sending you organic traffic, or even LLMs, right? So I would say, be careful, right? Don't just go out there and pay $70 thinking, or $300 thinking that you already got, the best deal on earth, and Igor is just trying to milk you.
If it sounds too good to be true, sometimes it really is, right?
Yeah.
But
truly.
yeah, I think like speed optimization is also not always easy, right? Like, what are some of the things? I think the most obvious one is, for example, like image size, like the size of the visuals you have, and like video material, like compress it, right? Because sometimes you have like huge files and you don't even know about it. There was, I think, back then what we were looking at. What are like other like quick wins merchants could do themselves to optimize page speed?
Okay, this is not an easy question.
Okay.
Because it is a very technical process. So while those $70 to $300 guys are doing this within a day, right? We do this process very manual, between 2 and 3 weeks. So the sooner, especially as we talk about Black Friday, the sooner we get started, the more rapid we're gonna get the results, right?
Yeah.
So they're not easy ways to do so, because it has become way more complex over time. And I can say why. Because it's not only about image size and videos and so on, right? It's about how many apps do you have running? How many apps do you stop using?
Yeah.
How much trash code is still in the theme that they did not remove from it once you disable the app, right? I'm just talking about one specific thing. What founders can do immediately is to, of course, look into their list of apps and say, okay, which ones are just sitting there not doing anything, and I'm still paying every single month for it, right? So just get rid of the apps because they're sitting there just adding more requests, right?
You're paying for making your website slower, basically.
Basically, yes, right?
Yeah.
But make sure that once you're removing them, you have a developer just go through the process and remove the access code, the trash code from it. So it's not just sitting there, because the apps are very kind to go in and insert, inject their code in the files. But then once you say, okay, I want to disable the app, they're not going to go there and say, okay, I'm going to remove it for you. You got to figure it out. Right?
Yeah, you have to be careful. Like some SaaS tools, they can mess up your store quite bad, right? And then, I mean, we are in the SaaS space, so that's something we take extremely serious. I mean, luckily we touch only very light on Shopify because, for example, we use it to create affiliate links, discount codes, or send products to influencers. So we don't need a lot, but we looked at that a lot because we knew that when we were merchants ourselves, that's how we got started in this whole industry, that those apps, they can make your website really slow, right? So it's good that you say
100%.
it. So probably if you're listening to this, right, I think just checking which apps you don't use and remove them, and then also double check that really the trash code is really removed so it doesn't slow your website. That's a good one. Then let's move on. Urgency and scarcity. I think this one is an interesting one as a marketeer. Tell us, Igor, what can merchants do there for Black Friday?
Right on. So I would definitely have a clear call to action as a top bar, right? So having that side-wide bar announcing what you got going on, right? Whether it is a free shipping threshold, or a specific offer that you got going on, or a specific collection that you got to have people visiting more often because of preparation for Black Friday or whatever, right? So that would be definitely one of the things that I would do for urgency and scarcity. Another thing that I would put in place would be, exit pop-ups, right? Make sure that you have your offers very well dialed in there. And don't just say, join the club or submit to find out about the new deals, right? Give me something in return. Because once people are landing on our site, they have one question in mind, right? And it's just one question, which is, what is in it for me? So if you get to answer that question and give them something immediately that they can benefit from, rather than creating more, friction and pushing them to, find out about, the news or the coupon code inside of their inbox so they can get even more distracted and never come back, right? Answer that question as they're going through your site. Don't let them run away to go to Facebook to do something, or to TikTok to share whatever, right? Keep them in tune with it. And then as you can see, the last thing is about simplifying checkout, right? Simplifying checkout, it's all because it's as close to the money as it gets. And a lot of people mess up quite a bit, because think with me for a second. You're right on the cart page or slide out cart. You have a bunch of distractions there showing a bunch of different products. People have already added their product to the cart, right? And you prefer to push them to go to other product pages to find out more about that product, rather than literally subconsciously speaking, just click the button to proceed to checkout, right? As I mentioned earlier, at least you want to break even on the front end. So let that process, as soon as they click the add to cart button, let that process go smooth. Don't try to push them elsewhere on the site. Let's go to the checkout page ASAP, right? So make sure that you're using, trust badges, reviews, right? So everything is dialed for them to understand that they're making the right decision, and they can go to the next stage in the journey.
Yeah. I think those are very interesting topics. specifically, I think during Black Friday, right, you have like split second to convert that customer, right? Because they're bombarded with hundreds of offers, right? Their emails, your email inbox is flooded. Every brand is running their offers, right? So I think there the CRO is so important because you have like a split second and don't waste it, right? You need to convert. Yeah, we just put like the discount code actually directly in the top banner, right? Black Friday, we were running a 30% off and then just a voucher there. Caused a bit of friction with our influencer program because the creators were sharing their voucher, but we just thought we're driving so much traffic, we want people to directly see it, and I think that the top banner there makes a lot of sense. One maybe interesting example on urgency, this was one CRO kind of thing we accidentally stumbled upon, which I think was quite interesting. Because you say urgency, right, in my opinion, right, as a marketeer, together with the offer, urgency, and I think social proof are maybe the three most important. And what we were doing is at some point we had a product SKU which was running low on stock. And then we thought, okay, we just need to notify people just because it was the case. And then we put a quick label of like low in inventory. And then all of a sudden we saw that a lot of people purchased that product. And then we saw this makes sense, right? If you think about it, right? The urgency, right? People think, oh shit, this is going out of stock. If I don't purchase now, I miss out on it. And then we started to flip it. So for the SKUs where we had a lot of inventory, we added the label low on inventory, so the conversion rate would go up. And this was quite crazy. I think the conversion almost doubled just by having that label low in inventory. So there was not an intentional test, but that shows that those small things with CRO can make a huge difference, right, in terms of revenue. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, I think these are probably the things, you can implement right away and drive more revenue through the season, right? Awesome. Oh yeah, this was actually a quick example screenshot of the store we were running. Yeah, here 2.64%.
Nice.
So what do you see here? Yeah, 70,000 added to cart, reach checkout. Yeah. So quickly on the most important KPIs, right? I think. Yeah, CRO being quite a technical field, like what would you say would be the most important KPIs every CMO founder should track when it comes to CRO?
Okay, beautiful. First of all, conversion rate, obviously, right? That's where the money starts to pour in, and then we can go back from that starting point, right? That's the main one. Then we're talking about revenue per session, revenue per user, however you want to go. Cart abandonment rate, right? Then I would say scroll depth is something super underrated, but I would definitely track it.
What was it?
Right?
Can you say that again?
Scroll depth.
Scroll depth. What?
How much people are actually scrolling on your page? What percentage
depth.
they're actually scrolling?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that allows you to understand how many people you're losing as the scrolls happen. Yeah. Right? And then, of course, at what level of the page itself we get to add other components that are more attracting and conversion driven, right? Because if people are bouncing from there, there's a reason, right? Yeah. If they're not taking an action, there is a reason, right? So I would definitely pay close attention to that.
It's quite crazy. I think we installed Hotjar to check this, and like people just don't scroll. It's really the top section, like below the fold. I think you have one section which they still check. That's why a lot of brands put their best sellers there, and then actually afterwards it drops significantly. That was what we saw. So you can do whatever you want on the bottom section of your website, but no one's going to see it, or at least most of the people don't.
Here's a kicker. Here's a quick tip, right? Because not a lot of people go to the footer of your store, right? But for those who do, it's because they haven't found what they're looking for.
True.
So that's the place that you must have your newsletter sign up in there, not asking for them to join the newsletter for new updates, right? Or launch updates or new discounts, is for you to add a call to action for them to get a discount immediately, right? So say enter your email below to get 10% discount immediately, something along those lines, because that you'd be surprised with the conversion rates of that specific newsletter if you have the right verbiage.
Yeah, interesting. And you mentioned exit pop-up earlier. What would you recommend for the pop-up? Because I think most brands, what you see is just like quite immediate. Like once you land on a page, they have the pop-up to just maximize your email take rate, because it makes a difference in your paid ads. If you're collecting, right? I think we had like a 2% email take rate or something in that direction. But you were mentioning an exit pop-up, which is quite later, right? Well, do you have any best practices there, or does it depend? Or
for sure, because pop-ups convert higher, but they kill UX if done poorly, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So you get to use intent-based triggers, right? Not timers. Intent-based triggers on desktop and timers on mobile, right? Because you're not able to see a lot of intent on mobile, right? So for example, on desktop, it would be an exit intent. On mobile, it would be time-based. So let's say that the average time on your page is about 1 minute, then within a 40-second mark, then it triggered that pop-up, right? So that's how I would go about it. So we use both very strategically, based on device, of course, and the funnel stage, because I don't want a pop-up on the cart page by any means.
Yeah, okay. Right? That makes sense. Yeah, you want to, you have to convert there. You don't want to distract them from the purchase. Yeah, I think what's also like super important is that you have to look at mobile the most, and even that, because like you often just sit on your desktop and look at your website and stuff, right? Because you work on your computer. But you just have to, I think this is too obvious, like you just have to know, because for example, I think we had maybe 80% of our traffic or something was mobile. So yeah, super important. So yeah, we went through the most important KPIs. Advertorials, right? So I think maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, you are more in the paid ad scene, but I think like 2-3 years ago, and even like still last year, like advertorials, VSLs was like the thing. Like the whole e-com scene was talking about this. This is the thing you need to run in order to optimize your revenue. First, is that still the case? Like advertorials are still driving. You see that a lot of merchants still use this. Maybe just start quickly with an explanation for the people who don't know what advertorials are. Just give us a quick introduction on advertorials and the context of it.
Beautiful. So it's all about, it's a page that's gonna, do a lot of storytelling, right? As I mentioned earlier, it's gonna get someone from a problem-aware subconscious level to a solution-aware subconscious level. So they get on the page, which is very well structured, like a blog page, for example, right? It's very educational, but they get there knowing that they have a problem. And if they don't know they have a problem, we'll raise the awareness to let them know they got a problem, right? So it's a very dialed in way of aligning with what I mentioned earlier, like joining the conversation they're already having in their brains once they land on the page. Right, so that's what an advertorial does, right? It's a long form page, blog style type of page that talks about the problem and then raises the awareness towards the solution that we got to offer. To give you a little bit of an understanding, we've been using both styles for a long time, right? And it differs from time to time, from brand to brand. Right? Of course,
if you're talking about both styles, you mean direct to the product page versus having an advertorial in between?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So just so you have an understanding of a test that we ran about a couple weeks ago, right? We ran an advertorial style page versus a product page. We saw a 75% increase in conversion rate from, coming from a product page visit to an advertorial. That's huge. That's huge. Of course, that doesn't happen for every single brand, but I highly encourage you guys to test it out, right? We've been killing it with advertorials, killing it, right? For example, some of the brands that we introduced this, I mean, they start with 1, 2, 3, and then all of a sudden they've done in a period of about 2 months, they've done 20, which is crazy, right? Because they see the value, they see that we can hit different angles, right? Because you're running marketing campaigns and you have different angles on your campaigns up on top of the funnel, and you can literally tailor that campaign angle to what the page itself talks about. So it creates a very seamless journey for those people to go through and purchase from you, rather than expecting that your product page is gonna hit every single angle. So it's more about leveraging the angles rather than just having something that is standard. It's a one size fits all. That's why you see that type of improvement in conversion rate, AOV, and so on.
That makes sense. Do you see that with specific type of products or verticals, advertorials work better compared to other product categories? Or would you say whatever the product category, each merchant or CMO should at least test the difference when implementing an advertorial?
It applies to everybody, right? Because some of the advertorials that we run, they're basically, click to checkout type of pages, right? So they convert directly from there, but they're also used as a bridge between, for example, a high SKU, high quantity SKU brand would utilize it as a bridge between that conversation they're having on the advertorial to a collection page where they show every single product that they can that can solve that problem that the person had, right? So in a nutshell, I would say it applies to everybody, every brand, every vertical. It's just a matter of aligning the angle accordingly and knowing where to lead people to afterwards, whether it is direct to checkout or a collection page or even a product page.
But I mean, essentially, it's kind of a pre-sales page, right? I mean, so
yes.
Instead of running the ad and then directly to your product page, what you're doing with an advertorial is basically having that step in between to educate the customer for a bit of a longer period of time, right? So you would be thinking this is an extra step in the conversion funnel, but at the same time, what you're saying is if the customer needs a little bit more education, then an advertorial is a great way to do it. So could it be 100%. The case that, for example, for like very simple, impulsive products, you might want to prefer to just directly refer them to the product page and to check them out, versus maybe, for example, supplements where it's health related, right? Or like certain products which needs a little bit more education, then advertorial is a great way to give more context and let people read a little bit before they make that buying decision. Or would you say even for like impulse, very low AOV items, you could still use an advertorial to increase performance?
I would use for everyone.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, it
doesn't matter it doesn't matter on the AOV, on the impulse purchase. It does not matter, right? At the end of the day, it's all about testing, right?
Yeah.
Because I can come up here and say, okay, it applies to everybody, and then you test it out and you get a crappy angle that you create in a crappy page, and then you test that out and you say, okay, Igor was wrong. But then if I go ahead and I'll create it for you and I'll dial it in from top to bottom, from the copy all the way to the design, to the UX and so on, right? To the development part of it, so it's fast and so on. and then that wins. Like, what is the disparity there? Because at the end of the day, it's all about testing it out. That's why I say it applies to everybody until your data speaks and says, okay, no, it's not working for us, right? But then when you say it's not working for us, the key here is your in-house team unable to do so, or can somebody else get that done at excellence for you? Two different ways of the highway, right?
Yeah,
the answer is depends.
No, 100%. I think, look, what you see often is that people go for design first, right? They think, okay, everything needs to look very nice, right? But then, right, I think what you are saying is always data first, right? Test, and maybe something doesn't look as nice, but if this brings you, right, twice as much revenue because you double your conversion rate, right, you should be going for what's better for your business versus what you think looks better, right? Do you see that often with like clients you work with, that they have like very strong opinions on how the store should look like, and you tell them, look, let's just test it, and you can show them the opposite?
Yes, big time, right? Because they're very passionate. That's their baby.
Yeah.
Come on, right? I get you understand this, right? As I talk to many different entrepreneurs, a lot of them are very oriented by the guidelines of their brand, right? And they want to make something pretty. But it's very common to see that not every pretty thing that is out there actually converts. So I go for, streamlined usability that creates clarity to start with, and then allows the customer to go through the journey seamlessly, rather than having, full width sections and, animations. And I mean, yes, they're pretty to see, but do you know if they create friction rather than traction? I'm going to keep bidding on this same line over and over again.
Yeah.
Right? So let the data speak. Let's test it out. Let's get a portion of your traffic and just let them see what that is. Because if we see a lift in conversions, and you don't want to apply that to your control in a sense, so everybody can see it, then it's your problem, right? But you know that what we created and tested, the data spoke very loud and clear, and we saw a lift. So if you don't like money, don't do it. Just keep the way it is.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I mean, look, it doesn't have to be, in my opinion, always this way. So it doesn't have to be, it can also be the other way around, right? So as an example, let's say you have the navigation bar, which I think also is quite a big CRO element. And I saw some examples where when you have just text in the navigation bar, right? And customers we are like visual human beings, right? So you can add, instead of just having text there, you can have either the mega menu, like some stores have the mega menu, or the navigation bar, you have like images of the different collection which you show there. And in my opinion, that's an example for the other way around. I think it looks nicer because it's more visually appealing, and at the same time it lifts, it increases conversion rate. So I think it doesn't always have to be the other way around. It can also be that it looks better and converts better. But I think at the end of the day, right, data goes first, right? As a business owner, you have the responsibility to, right, maximize revenue so you can grow your business, right? So, I mean, you're right. At the end of the day, it's the decision of the founder. If you don't want to increase revenue, don't do it. But highly recommend to look at the data, right?
That's better.
Maybe real quick in terms of the product page. I think, right, we mentioned urgency. Then the offer, then we have social proof, and a lot of our users and our audience, they're leveraging, right, user-generated content in different formats, right? This can be in your paid media, but also on your product page. And the main reason and why influencer marketing is so powerful is really the social proof behind it, right? Customers seeing that other people are using it. Is this something you also leverage for CRO, and you see an uplift in conversion when brands and merchants use UGC, which can be customer-based, user-generated content, or what merchants often do is like influencers, which make like influencer content, right? Which is kind of a synonym for UGC. Do you see that social proof element, which can have an impact on CRO?
Always 100%, right? It's social proof is about saying, okay, I'm doing this, right? So you should do too.
Yeah.
Right. So that's basically getting the understanding that the masses have, stamped, right? Stamped a clear direction, a clear understanding of what the product really is and what my experience is, right? So using social proof is a non-negotiable. Let's put it that way, right? And you know this, bro. You know it, right? You work with this day in and day out. And having this not only on your product page, but also on your home page, also on your cart drawer, your slide out cart or your cart page, even on your checkout page, they all increase conversions 100%.
Yeah, agree. I think with the offer and urgency, I think social proof was always one of the biggest levers on conversion rate. So yeah, use a lot of UGC. I think most brands know that, and if you can do more of it, highly recommend it. Real quick, because we went already away from advertorials, but you have a super useful advertorial template, right? Which people can use to just copy and then basically fill out for their own brand. So we will link that below as well. So just access it and use that format. It's for free, and Igor has been using that for a lot of clients. So I think that's a great resource. To kind of wrap up this podcast, Igor, do you maybe have like a few or like one case study, like maybe just an example case where some of your clients, right, could drive so much more revenue, or what changed because of CRO? Just a few examples or case studies. Do you have anything you could share with us there?
Yeah, for sure. Well, of course, that we do have on the page right there, on the slide, saying, just about one of the tests that we ran, right, which was a multivariant test. And basically, this client they already have a sales page on the very top of the funnel. We came up with the hypothesis of creating 3 more angles, right? 3 different angles for that, right? Creating advertorial style pages. And then they said, okay, I want one more, right? I have an idea. So their top sales page just, got hammered, right? We smashed it.
So it was bad, yeah?
Then, yes, it was bad.
Yeah.
Then his new idea, we ran over that thing crystal clear. It was, by far. Our first variant had about 3% increase in conversion rate. The second one, almost an 8% increase in conversion rate. And then the third one was the real winner, right? A 10.31% increase in conversions, almost 11% in revenue per visitor. That's huge, right? So it was an extra 131 grand per month in monthly monetary contribution. We always track monthly monetary contribution. So in this case, we're talking a projected revenue increase of about 1.5 mil in a year. That's huge, right? So that would be a E. Of course, that we have many other tests that we ran, but just for simplicity's sake, this is a big one. But there are others. I can even mention for a supplement brand with about 4 mil ARR. They had a problem with weak value proposition, high cart abandonment, So we got you tasked, new hero section, as I mentioned earlier, right, with clear benefits, risk reversal, simplified cart page, right? So we went from, having the hero section pretty dialed and then simplifying the cart page. So you got top of the funnel, mid of the funnel, and top mid funnel to close to the bottom of the funnel, and we really tuned it up. So the duration of that was about 4 weeks. We sampled about 50,000 sessions, right? So the result was about 21% increase in conversions. Revenue per visitor saw a lift of about 17%. And then we're talking about easily $80,000, $85,000 in monthly monetary contribution. So, it's pretty significant.
I mean, that makes a huge difference for your business, right? And I think that's really where the power of CRO lies, is that you keep your ad spend the same, but you're able to increase your revenue significantly, which makes such a big difference, right? Because again, I think we all know it, that CAC is so expensive, right? Or CPMs are continuing to increase. So if you don't do CRO, right, you will lose out on that. So I think these are a few great examples. We'll probably link also to the case studies below, so you can access that directly. I think that's pretty much it, Igor. I think we covered quite a lot. So I think maybe just a last question, just for founders listening in or CMOs. Do you have any book or podcast you would recommend to other founders or C-levels?
If they haven't read it yet, I highly encourage $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi.
Okay, super interesting.
Chewy.
We had an agency owner today visiting our office here, and he said the exact same thing. He was talking how we implemented some of those offers, and it's also applicable for B2C merchants. It's because it's not only for B2B, it's also for B2C.
It's for everyone. Even if you're a personal trainer,
yeah.
I can name it.
Yeah.
Right? Like anything. It gives you a good perspective of, how to make your offer, so amazing that people, is exactly what they said, right? Make your offer so great or so amazing or so good that people feel stupid to say no.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, we had that conversation earlier today. So this came up twice today. So I will make sure, for sure, to read that book. Awesome, Igor. Thank you so much for sharing all of this useful advice. If people want to find out more about you, how can they best find you?
You can go to Instagram, official Igor Silva. We can add that in the description, of course. Or you can go to www.vasta.me. Right, there you go. Or even hit me up on my email, right? Igor@vasta.me. Happy to connect. Happy to hop on a call, chat business, chat vision, and of course, chat money. Let's help you, generate more revenue across the board and see where are the main leaks in the funnel.
Awesome.
That's it.
Perfect.
But one way or another, Peter, thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it. It's awesome. I truly appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. My team is also very happy to see this. They can't wait to see it live. And I gotta go because I have a client call.
Awesome. Good luck, Igor. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in, and see you the next time. Bye-bye.
Right on, dude. Bye. Thank you so much.